Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Was General VK Singh provoked into calling the media prostitutes? And was the comment justified? Or is this another example of his indiscreet and indefensible behavior which can only embarrass the government? That's the discussion in part 2. But first, the National Green Tribunal's order banning diesel cars that are over 10 years old from plying on the capital's streets. Is this the best and most practical response to Delhi's pollution predicament, or is it impetuous and likely to have damaging consequences without really proving to be effective? That's our first discussion tonight. And joining me now to talk about the National Green Tribunal's order is the Director General of the Centre for Science and the Environment, Sunita Narayan, the Secretary of the Indian Tourist Transporters Association, Sarabjit Singh, the Managing Editor of Consumer Voice, Sri Ram Khanna, and the well-known automobile columnist, Murad Ali Beg. Professor Khanna, the National Green Tribunal has ordered that all diesel cars over 10 years old are to be immediately prohibited from plying in the capital streets. Give me an overall assessment before we come to specifics and details. Is this a wise and necessary ruling, or could it be, in many respects, a hasty one that could inconvenience the not-so-rich middle class?
Let me put it to you, the arguments that have been used by the tribunal is that they are concerned about the high levels of pollution in the national capital region. And it has now been proven by independent data that the particulate matter in the air of Delhi has gone beyond the tolerable limit. It's leading to allergies, it's leading to distress.
Those are facts I don't deny. Yeah. I am asking you to give me your overall assessment of this.
I am only saying
that, or is it hasty?
See, the tribunal is a quasi-judicial body. It has no policy-making power, and it wants to act in certain situations, it acts. But whether that order can be implemented, whether it will be effective, what consequences it may have, which they may or may not have considered, is another question altogether.
That's the question I'm asking you.
So in my view,
do you have doubts and concerns?
I have doubts, but I also know that this order is only a trigger. It's the start of a story.
Yeah, but first let's talk about the doubts. We'll come to the trigger point later. Yeah. What are the doubts you have?
Firstly, they had another order some time back that they will stop cars which are 15 years old, even petrol cars.
And it wasn't implemented.
And it's difficult to implement it. Hardly a few thousand cars. Second, the transport departments of the governments in the NCR are not known for their good governance. So it will take years for the order to be actually show some effect on the streets.
Let's come to the sort of concerns, Mr. Sarabjit Singh, that actually affect real people. You're Secretary of the Indian Tourist Transporters Association. Many of your members probably drive diesel vehicles. What impact will this have, A, on tourist operators, and B, on the livelihood of the people they employ?
See, these questions actually, today it doesn't affect us because the life of commercial vehicle in tourist car, it's 9 years, in tourist coach, it's 8 years. So we are actually not affected that much. But to answer what was just said, that 15 years ago, the Supreme Court ordered that 15 years old cars should be taken out, and similarly diesel vehicles were also put off road straight away. The basic thing is that if you look at it, the orders of 2001 by Supreme Court, which laid out certain other conditions as well, but the only one thing which was implemented immediately was putting off road the diesel vehicles of transport.
All the others were ignored.
All others were ignored.
But the important point you're making is that the livelihood of tourist operators who use diesel cars will not be affected because the life of their vehicles is under 10 years.
Under 10.
So the concerns in the papers that actually people could lose jobs, operators could lose their business, that's an exaggerated, in fact, it's a wrong concern.
But it might be for the other taxis, that is public taxis, that black and yellow top or radio taxis. Radio taxis, those are in any case CNG now. So
Murad Ali Beg, you're a person who writes about cars. Many people read your columns and decide what car to buy. Tell me something. Is it the case that middle class Indians can easily and comfortably afford to buy a new car every 10 years? Or might they actually be people who have well-maintained cars but won't be able to use them because they cross the 10-year limit, and these people will suddenly have a fairly substantial problem?
Most people as you describe, will probably sell their cars after 5 years. Some will be less, some will be more. But certainly 10 years is not going to be a hardship for them on the first sale. But the person who buys it on the second sale is a very substantial market. The second-hand market is as big as the new car market. And the second-hand buyers, they're the ones who are going to be put at a great deal of risk.
And those are the poorer people.
They're the poorer people.
So in other words, this is going to hit those who can't afford new cars,
That's right.
rely upon second-hand cars. Suddenly, they will find that a second-hand car they buy, hoping that they can use it for 7-8 years, will end possibly after 3 or 4 years.
And the diesel cars, the worst offenders are the government departments themselves. If you look at the number of old diesel vehicles in the army, in the police, in the number of the
Public
transport in it's a huge number. And there's a third problem, and that is that nobody keeps track of cars after their sale. You and I have sold cars before. Do we have the foggiest idea where they've gone?
Don't the authorities, the registration authorities know?
They are supposed to. But in actual fact, it's a very nobody bothers about it.
Let's take up the second point Murad Ali Beg made. He's made it very clear that the vast majority of people who rely upon second-hand cars, and that's a market as large as the new car market, will actually be losers and sufferers. They are going to pay the penalty. What about government departments, the army and others who have diesel vehicles? They rely upon them. They probably believe that they will last for more than 10 years. They also will suffer, won't they?
See, I'll take the first issue first. I don't agree with Mr. Beg that the second buyer will suffer because the order is confined to the NCR. The NCR vehicles will go to Bengal, will go to Andhra Pradesh, will go to all over India where there is no ban.
But you're making a different mistake. Surely there are people in NCR who buy second-hand vehicles. They buy them expecting that they last for 6 or 7 years.
They are not going to
That's what happened.
They are not going to buy them if there is a ban on 10-year vehicles.
But they can't afford to buy a new car either.
No, but they will not. Then they will buy some other vehicle.
But that's what I'm saying. Don't you see? They are paying a cost. They can't buy the car they want to. They can't afford to buy a new car, so they're going to have to settle for scooters instead.
And they don't know how to sell their old car. The resale value of their old cars will go down drastically.
We've got Sunita Narayan joining us. Sunita Narayan, I want to ask you a question with which we kicked off our discussion, and then I'll proceed further after that. And the question was this: is the tribunal decision to overnight ban the use of diesel cars that are over 10 years old a wise and necessary ruling, or was it a little hasty, and will it inconvenience the not-so-rich middle class? And before you answer, let me point out that Murad Ali Beg, the motors expert, has pointed out that the second-hand car market, which is as large as those who buy new cars, are people who buy cars that are after 6 or 7 years old. They will now have to only keep their car for 3 years, not longer. They will suffer.
Karan, as Murad is there, he knows very clearly what our position is. We have asked for a ban on the manufacture of diesel cars. We have never asked for a ban on 10-year-old cars.
But that hasn't happened. So how do you respond to this ban?
So what you get a knee-jerk response given the fact that diesel cars are definitely a very big problem in Delhi, given the fact that diesel is legally allowed to emit 4 times more NOx and 7 times more particulate matter. So essentially, you have diesel cars which are a very bad thing. But
can I stop you? Can I stop you? The reason I'm stopping you is that you said something very important. You said that this decision to ban overnight diesel cars that are 10 years old is a knee-jerk response. What they should have done was to find the way of stopping diesel cars per se, but to simply stop the use of cars once they become 10 years old is knee-jerk. Therefore, are you suggesting that it's hasty and poorly thought through?
Well, I can't say that. It's NGT. As you know, that the court doesn't allow us to criticize them. But I definitely think that the problem of air pollution is very serious. And what we need is serious measures that can be implemented. Now, when it comes to diesel car ban, it is very clear that you have private cars, particularly taxis, and you have very large numbers of private cars that have been registered in Delhi post 2000. Now, they can be phased out, Though I think the Delhi government should be wise enough to actually step in and say we will ban registration of diesel cars.
Yes, but let's talk about, just a moment, let's talk about what they've done rather than what you think they should do, because that we don't know whether they'll do or not. Let me come back to this problem of implementation before I come to the other issues. In November, the same Green Tribunal, Professor Khanna, ordered that all cars that are 15 years old, diesel or petrol, would be banned from Delhi's roads. That simply hasn't been enforced. What are the chances that this new order will equally fail to be enforced?
While I agree with Sunita...
Answer my question. Answer my question.
But while agreeing with her that it's a major problem we have to solve, this order may not be really going to deliver us what we are expecting. It is unlikely to bring down pollution levels.
No, but can it be implemented?
It can be implemented, but only in parts and over a long period of time. And the cost of implementation.
What are the problems in implementing it?
See, the moment you confiscate somebody's car, he'll go and challenge it in a court of law. There will be writ petitions in the high courts. The high courts will order, it'll take a couple of years before the high courts decide. Then the high court decisions will be...
So this will lead to a legal mess.
It will be lead to legal litigation all the way to the Supreme Court for the next 20 years.
Let me raise something else with you, Mr. Sarabjit Singh. The order also applies not just to cars in Delhi, but vehicles entering Delhi. Now, today's Times of India says that 5 lakh vehicles enter Delhi every single day. 75,000 of these are trucks, 2,500 are state transport buses. These trucks and buses bring in vital vegetables, grain and food, and let's not forget passenger traffic. How badly will they be affected?
This particular question was discussed in 2001 by Supreme Court, and the orders were there that all interstate buses entering into Delhi, there will be ISPT type terminals on the borders, and these buses will not enter, and they will.
But now those ISBT type terminals, weigh bridges as they're called, or PUC centers don't exist. No. So this order comes into application without that. So answer my question: what impact will it have on grain, vegetable, and passenger traffic?
Just 1 minute. At that point of time, this truck business was also discussed, and we were in the Supreme Court, so as the Transport Trucks Union also, and they were saying that we do not want to enter.
But let's not go back into the past. Answer the question as of today.
See, if those things have not been implemented even after 15 years...
And they haven't.
They haven't.
So then what will be the situation?
Even after now, these things may not happen again.
Answer my question, sir. Yeah. What will be the situation facing vegetables coming to Delhi, grain coming to Delhi, food coming to Delhi, and passenger traffic? What happens to them?
For that, see, the basic thing is that the trucks are passing through Delhi. There are, yes, trucks are coming with the material for
but what
to deliver
if
in
the
Delhi.
Trucks are over 10 years old?
Yeah, those should not be there for applying.
But let me put that question to you,
if you want
not giving me
where
the
are they going to be parked? They'll be all jamming all the highways coming into Delhi and going out.
Yeah. The bypass has
1 acre of land is required for about 300 trucks. Now, when these trucks come in, if the police stop them at the barriers, where are they going to park? Where are they going to put them? There is no space.
So we are going to have chaos on all the entry points of Delhi? Is that what you're suggesting?
Seriously.
And also you're saying there could be a deleterious impact on the ease with which vegetables and grains come, particularly if those vegetable and grains are coming on trucks and lorries that are more than 10 years old.
First of all, nothing will move.
Sunita, do you think that these are aspects that the Green Tribunal took on board? And I'll just, for the sake of the audience, enumerate the 2-3 disadvantageous outcomes of this. One, that people who depend upon second-hand cars and hope to buy a second-hand car and keep it for 5-6 years now may have trouble because they may not be able to keep a second-hand car for more than 3 or 4 years. Secondly, the impact on traffic coming into Delhi, which affects vegetables, grains and passengers. And then thirdly, the impact on Army, Navy, Air Force and government transport departments who often plan to use cars for more than 10 years. Do you think the tribunal thought all this through?
Well, I don't, Karan, I'm not in court. I'm not in the tribunal. This is not a case we are arguing. But let me take the 3 issues and the 3 cons that you have listed. As far as private cars are concerned, the fact is anybody who was buying a diesel car was buying it at their own risk. It was very clear for the last 10 years that there is enough reason why diesel should not have been used in private cars. The price differential was kept artificial.
But that's
the fact is Mercedes-Benz.
Sunita, be fair. Ordinary people who buy passenger cars are not expected to do an anticipatory reasoning of whether the car they are buying is one that should be made in the first place. If it's made and it's sold, people are buying it.
But the manufacturers knew. But we're not talking about
manufacturers, we're talking about customers. We're talking about the Aam Aadmi who buys cars, he's going to suffer.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. But we are all suffering because of air pollution. So the fact is that it is directly the manufacturers who continue to make diesel cars in spite of every evidence
but we're not talking about manufacturers, Sunita, we're talking about the impact on ordinary Indians who buy in good faith.
I appreciate it. But Karan, the fact is what Green Tribunal does in its own wisdom. And
I'm asking a different question. I'm asking a different question.
Yes.
I'm saying when they came to their conclusion, do you think that they would have borne the sort of cons we are discussing in mind, or do you think they ignored all of that?
Well, Karan, as I said, I was not in court, and I don't know the minds of the honorable judges. I only wish that they would take action that could actually be implemented and bring the kind of relief we need in the city, because we need relief. And we don't want to waste more time thinking about how we cannot implement something.
Murad Ali Beg, the problem is we need to have measures that tackle pollution desperately. No one denies that. Delhi is a suffering city. But measures that can't be implemented, or measures that have costs that are probably as great as the benefit, become measures that are impractical. So let me put this to you. There are other countries that are toying and have begun the process of doing away with diesel altogether. Brazil, China, Denmark, Sri Lanka, cities like Paris and Hong Kong, but each of them have already announced that it will happen 4 or 5 years down the road.
Right.
This tribunal has come up with a decision that has to be enforced in 24 hours flat.
Right.
Do you think the tribunal should have done it on a more graduated scale, or do you think at least they should have given the authorities and the public 6 to 9 months warning?
No, they should have given a roadmap so people knew what is coming. Today, no buyer of a second-hand diesel car knows that this is going to happen, because the resale value of diesel cars is still quite high. But the moment this comes into effect, I, as an owner of a supposedly of a second-hand diesel car, my resale value will drop to 0. I will not be able to dispose of it. I'll have great difficulty in finding a buyer outside of the NCR.
So, out of reasons of equity and fairness, they should have given a roadmap, they should have given people warning.
Yes.
What about something else, Professor Khanna? In countries like the UK, rather than ban old cars, what they do is to have compulsory road fitness tests. They're called MOT tests. And depending on the age of the car, the test could even be an annual requirement. Is that something the Green Tribunal should have enforced rather than a blanket ban? Because a blanket ban means many people who keep their cars well, and those cars then are fit, simply can't be used.
See, let's distinguish between the power and authority of a tribunal and the scope of a government.
Professor Khanna, answer my question. My question is a specific one. I'm asking you, do you think the tribunal should have emulated this?
It is beyond the power of a tribunal to give into government policy formulation and implementation. They can only pass orders on paper. They don't have the...
Why could they not pass an order on paper to say that any diesel car over 5 years has to have a meticulous road check every year?
They can say that, but they could not have formulated the regulations to empower workshops to do those tests.
But can't they?
And their credibility and their accreditation and their equipment and their training. It's not a miracle that you bring a van and say, here you are. No. These are long-term measures which take time, money, training, equipment.
Sridhar, let me come back to you. Your central concern was that, in fact, the very manufacture of diesel cars should be stopped. This, you say, is in fact the wrong way of approaching the problem. Now, the Times of India reveals today that 1,400 new diesel cars are registered in Delhi every single day. This adds to the already existing count of 6 lakh cars. And as you pointed out, these diesel cars, each of them emits 3 times more nitrous oxide, 7 times more particulate matter. Do you think steps should be urgently taken to stop the manufacture of diesel vehicles, full stop?
Absolutely, Karan. We have been asking for this for the last 10 years, and we have actually been beaten on this. because the power of the auto manufacturers is so much. You have to remember that the price of diesel was kept lower than the price of petrol. So even a Mercedes-Benz owner was buying a diesel variant because it was cheaper to run. So as I don't feel sorry for them today if they cannot sell their second-hand car. The fact also is that even today when the diesel is deregulated, the price differential is still 10 rupees because the tax on diesel is lower because of reasons of goods transport, as you talked about. All the goods that have to come to bring all our sabjis and everything into our cities. How can you allow private cars to run on that fuel? Why don't we ban it? Now, otherwise we will get these kind of knee-jerk responses because pollution will go up and none of us will be able to breathe, let alone live.
Absolutely. I'm reiterating that phrase again. The second time again you called the tribunal response a knee-jerk response. Let me put this to you. Diesel is no longer subsidized except for the fact that the tax on diesel is less. The tax is less. Do you think we need to improve the quality of diesel? I'm told that the diesel sold in India is some 10 years behind in quality terms the diesel sold in Europe.
The ultra low sulfur diesel is necessary to reduce the SOx emissions, which is a very poisonous emission. But the basic point is that the differential in price. Now, the cost of diesel worldwide is higher than petrol.
Except
the cost,
in India.
Except in India, maybe one or two other countries, but certainly in India the differential is gigantic.
So we need to improve both the difference and close the difference and improve the quality.
Taxes. So the fact that the central government may not be charged, but the point is with the state governments and all the rest of it is there's a huge pile of taxes on.
Let me end by putting this to you, Mr. Sarabjit Singh.
Karan.
Yes.
I want to come in.
Very quickly, in 30 seconds.
Very important point you made about cleaner fuel. The fact is, as of April 1, we have clean diesel available in North India. But the automobile manufacturers have blocked the notification that will force them to have clean diesel trucks registered all over North India. So be very clear, the automobile manufacturers are responsible today for the mess we are in.
Okay, except for the fact that the government doesn't have to give in to them, and if the government does, then the responsibility becomes the government's. Let me end by putting this to you. We've got only 10 seconds and I want you to give me a clear answer. Do you think this measure announced by the National Green Tribunal will actually be an effective and practical way of reducing pollution, or is it, as Sunita calls it, A, knee-jerk, and B, will it create a lot of problems that perhaps the tribunal hasn't thought about?
Not at all. No difference it is going to make.
No difference.
The reason is, if you are looking at pollution in Delhi, then there are so many other things which have not been looked into by the government, like dust which is coming again.
In other words, this is just a naam ke vaste response.
It is actually nothing.
Sonia, I'm sorry you can't interrupt. I've run out of time. I allowed you to do it once, but you can't do it all the time. I'm out of time. Other people's opinions are as valid as yours on the show, even though you disagree with them. I'll point out to the audience that you disagree with Mr. Sarabjit Singh, but Mr. Sarabjit Singh is entitled to his view. My thanks to my three guests for coming to the studio. My thanks also to Sunita for joining us.
Thank you.